Hello and welcome to Cookery with Mason Storm. On today's episode we'll be making shepherd's pie with ground beef, so I guess it's technically cottage pie. Ran into some problems while making it, but it ended up tasting amazing, so I'm going to show the process anyway. So let us begin. I'm going to give the ingredients as what I wish I did rather than what I did myself. Half an onion, a can of diced tomatoes, 3 tablespoons of Worcestershire sauce, 2 cloves of garlic, 2 cups of beef broth, 1 kilogram of beef, and 2 cups of peas. Preferably peas and carrots because that stuff's amazing. And now I got out my cutting board and I got the onion. I'm just going to cut the onion in half. I've already kind of peeled it already, so I'm just going to take the tops off of it. And then I'm going to do the several cuts across the onion before kind of dicing it a little bit with the tiger's claw, cat's paw, whatever you want to call that. And then because I cut it through the root, you can use the root to kind of hold on to that last little bit when you're doing your final cuts. And it doesn't get any easier than that. Well, the only thing that kind of sucks about cutting onion is, well, the way of your eyeballs and that kind of haven't way to get around that. It's usually best to cut your onion last for that reason, but for whatever reason I'm cutting it first. But now to work on our garlic. So I just kind of took the tips off there, kind of crushed them, and just kind of have a fine little slice. And then because that wasn't fine enough, I decided to do a second and a third pass, which doesn't take very long to do. And then I have nice little chunks of garlic, which is just fantastic. We'll transfer those back into their little bowl, and then we can move over to our stove top and work on our real cooking. So I got myself a nice, great big pan here. I'm going to turn up the temperature of the stove to maximum, nice and high, super hot. Then I'll drizzle in a little bit of oil and then dump my onions in. And then I'll dump the beef in, and we're just going to try to cook down the onions and we're going to brown the beef. The reason why I said before to use half an onion instead of a full one is that the ratio of onion to beef and the ratio from peas to beef was kind of off in my final. So I ended up doubling down on the beef in it, and then that just made for a massive amount of food, which was kind of way more than I really needed. And that was kind of unfortunate, but I was able to recover from that, which was okay, I guess. I mean, it tasted fantastic, but unfortunately now I got to eat shepherd's pie for the next week, and I got to eat pretty big servings of it too, so that's always fun. And over the course of time, all of our beef will eventually brown. Well, at the same time, the onions will start to cook down, which is exactly what we want. And then we can start adding in our other ingredients. I'm going to toss in my garlic, and then my diced tomatoes. These are Mexican style. Worcestershire sauce. And then I'm going to follow that up with dumping in a ludicrously large amount of peas. This was where it went wrong. I don't know why, but I thought the amount of peas I had was less than what it looked like, when it turns out it was just the amount it looked like, so way more than what was needed. And I was able to fix this later on by adding a little bit of beef to it, but there's our beef broth, and those are all of our core ingredients for making the bottom portion of our shepherd's pie. Although technically shepherd's pie is lamb meat and cottage pie is beef, so this is technically cottage pie. Although in Canadian English it doesn't really make any difference whatsoever. It's only in real English where that makes any kind of difference. And doubling the amount of beef wasn't too bad, it's just I ended up with a ridiculously large shepherd's pie. So at this point we're just kind of cooking this down. We want to evaporate a lot of that beef broth liquid that's in there, and that will really enrich the flavor of this bottom of the cottage pie. And I just add in my second set of beef, which is just fantastic. So my ratios are all where I want them to be. Meanwhile, I'll work on the mashed potatoes. So I got my potatoes, I got my cream, and I got my butter, which are the 3 ingredients you need to make good mashed potatoes. So let's dump all these potatoes in a nice big pot, and then I'll fill it with cold water, and then we'll head over to the stove and we'll work on that. Just kind of slide the bottom out of the way, and then we'll put down our mashed potatoes, or potatoes to be mashed. We want our potatoes on maximum so it boils the water nice and quick, and we want our other stuff, the bottom portion of our cottage pie, to be on a medium-low setting. We're just kind of evaporating the juices in it, which takes a considerable amount of time to actually do. And as far as the potatoes go, we gotta wait for the water to boil, then we gotta wait for the potatoes to cook, and then we gotta actually mash them. So there's quite a bit of time in making the potatoes, so there's lots of time for the juices in the bottom portion of our cottage pie to evaporate and soak in all that flavor into the meat and vegetables. And we're gonna keep testing our potatoes after probably like 15-20 minutes with a fork to see if they're nice and tender. And once they're sufficiently tender, we can move on to the next step, which would be actually mashing the potatoes. So in order to do that, I'm going to first drain out all the water. So I got my strainer here, just going to go over to the sink, out of frame, and dump out all the water that's inside the pot. And then I come back and set it back. There we go. Looks like potatoes, doesn't it? Then I'll get out my potato masher, and I'm going to start mashing the potatoes. Now you got to make sure you don't over mash your potatoes. You don't want to turn them into glue because that tastes horrendous. So just a nice gentle mashing, and then add in a little bit of butter, and then add in a little bit of cream, and just kind of get it to kind of suit your taste. I don't know exactly how you like your potatoes, but I like mine with butter and cream, and I think that's fantastic. And then I'll just mash them again, and then I'll get a spoon and try them and see where I am, see what I need more of. A little salt and pepper goes a long way when it comes to making mashed potatoes. The salt really draws out the flavor in them, so I am a big fan of adding salt to mashed potatoes. And the pepper gives a little bit of spice that kind of makes it so it's not super boring. Either way, potatoes are awesome. Mashed potatoes are great. And this is such a good meal because it combines beef and vegetables and potatoes all together in one cohesive meal. It's just fantastic. Pretty big fan of this stuff. I was really amazed with how this turned out at the end. And here we go. I got myself a nice casserole pan, and I'm going to proceed to dump my mixture inside of it, beginning with the beef vegetable layer on the bottom. Now this wasn't the pan I was originally going to use. The one I was originally going to use was quite a bit smaller. So when I proceeded to dump the potatoes on the top of my vegetable beef mix here, it turns out that I didn't have enough potatoes to cover the top of the pan, which was highly unfortunate. So what I did was I took a lot of the base of it and put it back in the pan I was originally going to use, and then I moved the potatoes over with it. Now the only problem with that is that the potatoes started to track and get kind of filled with a lot of stuff with the beef mixture, so I wasn't able to get a nice clear potato top that I wanted to, and that was kind of unfortunate. Yeah, that really kind of sucked. It kind of ruined the whole shepherd's pie, but sure tasted good. And once you have your nice potato layer on top of your beef mixture, then you want to bake it in the oven, probably 350, 400 for about 40-50 minutes. Get some color on the potatoes, get nice kind of golden brown on them, and then you're all set. I probably should have just threw it in the oven as it was and kind of went with it, or made more potatoes. Either way, this somewhat worked, but wasn't the prettiest and wasn't the most elegant solution. But I know for next time. And now you do too. So let me know in the comments below if you've ever had any interesting times making shepherd's or cottage pie. And if you like my content and like to see more of it, please like and subscribe. And until next time, stay awesome.